So today I'm going to show you how to make this image. Now this is a really simple image. All it is a fake jigsaw puzzle. But there are some quite nice techniques to learn to do this. Also, each part of this puzzle is completely independent of the rest. So if you look at my layers palette on the right hand side here, see every part of the puzzle is actually on its own layer. So you can all be moved around independent of each other. Now the reason why I say that, or the reason why I've done that, is because then you could say, for example, put it into Flash and make a jigsaw puzzle game. You could put it into After Effects and actually animate each part of the jigsaw, so you can have all the jigsaw puzzle bits flying onto the screen and assembling to make the image, which I might actually add at the end of this video. It depends what I feel like. At the end of the video I might actually do that with After Effects. And it's just a cool effect. I like it, and let's do it basically. So I'm going to close this to save some memory. So here's the image, the original, before we've actually started playing around with it. So what you need to do first is go to image size, and note down the pixel dimensions. Okay, so make sure this says pixels, not percent. Jot those down, and also take a note of the resolution, but that's not a major problem. It's just these are. If you then go to Illustrator, go to File, New, what you got to do is make sure you set your unit measurement to pixels. Set your width and your height to match the original document in Photoshop. Underneath the Advanced tab, set your color mode to the same as Photoshop, i.e. this one's in RGB, not CMYK. Your raster effects as close to your Photoshop document. Remember, mine was in 72. Now that's up to you. It could be in 300, doesn't really matter too much. But preview mode set to pixel as well. Why do all this? Illustrator is a resolution independent program. That's why it's only got these few resolution effects there, because you don't really need it. It's dependent on the output, whether it's output to screen, output to printer, etc. So that's where the resolution comes in, not particularly why you're creating it. But we're trying to force it to be pixel based because we're working in Photoshop. We want it to be precise. So okay, so we've got all this set, and then we do okay. Now we get our document up, and what we want to do is make a grid on here and make our puzzle template. So the template for actually help us cut out the puzzle bits in Photoshop. So look for, underneath the line segment tool, something called the rectangular grid. Once you've got it selected, go up the top and change its fill to none, and you want the stroke to be whatever colour you like, really, it doesn't matter, but I'm going to have black. Points, or point level, I'm going to put to 2. Now in this instance the 2 is actually going to be 2 pixels, because that's what we set the measurements to. It's not strictly true, but that's what it's going to work out as for us today. Once I've done that, I'm going to click on the screen anywhere, and the width and height again are going to match our document we just made, or the same as in Photoshop. Number of horizontal and vertical dividers, I'm going to use 4 to keep it simple today. Actually, I might actually take this down to 3. It's going to make quite big jigsaw pieces, but you can set these as many as you like. But for today, I'm going to limit the number of pieces so I can get through this tutorial quicker. The more they are, the better the effect will look, but the more memory it will take up on your machine to render it, and if you've got a low spec machine it can get quite slow. So, and the first time you do this, do keep it small, because you're going to make mistakes and you'll be annoyed if you make it 50 odd pieces and it all goes horribly wrong. So first time you do it, keep it relatively simple. You might only want 2 by 2, and do OK. It's going to draw a grid. I'm just going to use selection tool to align that with my document page. So you can already see a basic jigsaw, but it would be really easy to line this together. So we're going to make the leaves, or the legs, or whatever you want to call it, of the jigsaw piece now. So I'm going to select my ellipse tool, hold down my shift key, and I'm going to draw a circle roughly, and I do mean roughly, the quarter of one of these lines. Once I've drawn that, I'm going to move it onto the edge of a line like so, hold my Alt key down and drag a copy of it onto the other line. Now you want to do this on every single line. Now when you do this, don't worry about them being uniform. It has got to be perfectly in the middle, but do try and keep the overlap or the underlap roughly the same, i.e. how much it overlaps or underlaps into one or the other. If you find it's too small, too big, just click one and use the cursor keys on the keyboard to move it a pixel or two. Now I'm going to do this for every single line, because every single line will have a jigsaw leaf, piece, foot, whatever you want to call it. So you need to be careful and make sure you put this on, or put one of these on every single line. Now what I'm going to do is speed up the video now and then come back to you once I've done every single bit. Right, once you've done that, do check that you've added a circle to every single line. So circle, 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 etc. See, missing one. It's quite easy, believe it or not, while you're doing this to miss. If you do, just quickly add one in. Circle, 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 circle. So you can see what I mean. If you started with like 50 odd pieces, it starts to get quite manic. So keep it very simple to begin with. Now what we need to do is actually combine this all together to make a singular, or sorry, separate shapes for each single jigsaw puzzle. Control A, select all. Look for the tool that is called the Shape Builder tool. Now if I move this across one of the squares or one of the circles, you can see it selects it. And what we actually want to do is join the correct circles to the correct circles to the correct squares. So for example, I hold my mouse button down and say, oh, you belong to there, you belong to there. See, jigsaw puzzle. You belong to there, you belong to there. And we just continue to do this for every single circle within our Illustrator document. Once you've done that, do go through and double check you have actually done this, because it is quite easy to miss a few. Remember, if you make mistakes, Control Z is for undo. So let me just double check. Okay, 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 okay. So that's all done. Now, all we can do now is copy and paste this into Photoshop. So it is a case of doing just Control C, Control V, but I'm actually going to save this just in case before I go any further. So Control C. If you're worried, do Control A, then Control C. Go to Photoshop and do Control V. Now when you're pasting this in, make sure it's a smart object and do OK. Now before we go any further, don't bash return or click the tick button, think everything's hunky-dory. Make sure anti-aliasing is turned off. Right, you can press return or click the tick buttons, up to you. Now one of the problems is, even though we made our documents the same, see we got this 1 pixel edge out here, you may find this is even worse on yours. It all depends on your image resolutions and everything. Usually you find it's a pixel out here and a pixel out at the bottom. But in this example, we're a pixel out on one side. You can just stretch it, it's fine. You know, you can just let this layer and just stretch it 1 pixel. But before we do that, remember we drew these lines 2 pixels in depth, or 2 points as Illustrator put it. Why? That's a very good point. Why did we do them that big? Now I'm going to use the magic wand. I've got my tolerance set at 0, anti-aliasing on, contiguous on, sample all layers turned off. So I'm going to rechange this to template. And on my template there, I'm going to click, and it selected everything within that puzzle piece, which is great. So I could do Control J, select background, do Control J, and then I could go back to my template, select another puzzle piece below it, select our background again, Control J to duplicate. But the problem is we've got this line, i.e. where we selected inside the template we made is obviously got that line around it, so it hasn't actually selected the line, it's selected inside that, and we've got a gap. Not good. So we need to fix that. So the easiest way, let me just dump those two layers because they're incorrect. The easiest way is to do our selection like we just did, and then we would go select, modify, expand, and we're only going to expand it by 1 pixel and do OK. Now you can see it's expanded. Brilliant. So we could go back to the background again, do Control J, go back to our template, we'll select the one below, and we'll do that expand pixel again, back to the background, Control J. And let's turn the background off again, and we'll turn the template off again. All but perfect. The problem is we've got a gap at the top, and we also have, see this little transparency there, here and here. So not major issues, because once we do the effects and stuff, you're not really going to see them. But for if you want to be perfect, you've got to sort that, obviously. If you're going to do it on a big printout, say on a wall or something, you wouldn't want those showing. And the edging, if it's a delicate image and we're losing a pixel off the edge, that could also get us in trouble. So we need to fix both of those. So again, we're getting closer, but we're going to dump those two layers. So how to fix those things all together in one. So obviously masking. But before we go any further, we need to fix the edging as well. So what I'm going to do is go to Image, Canvas Size, set it to pixels, and we're going to actually add an extra pixel to the edge of our image. This is going to be discarded at the end. We're not actually going to keep it. But for now, we're going to add an extra pixel all the way around. So it's an extra 2 on each value. So a pixel to the left, right, top, bottom. That's it. So you can just about see a white line's appeared. So if we zoom in, you can see an extra pixel. What I'm then going to do is size up our template to match. And then let's go down to the bottom, scroll right across, and we do the same here. Once we're happy, we press return. Remember, we put this in as a smart object, so doing that, we don't lose any resolution, or it doesn't anti-alias it to go blurry. That's why we use a smart object. Now we can do our selection again. Do our select, modify, expand. Now notice I've done a custom shortcut here. That doesn't exist in Photoshop. You can set them into edit preferences. Expand. 1 pixel. Okay. Now you should find when we look at this, oops, sorry, it's gone that extra pixel across the edge, but it doesn't matter because remember we added an extra pixel. So I'm going to undo that selection. Now before we go any further, remember we're going to use masking. So what I'm going to do is Control A to select all, Control C to copy. Now I've made a copy of the background in memory. Go back to our template, Control D for deselect. Select the first piece of the puzzle. Remember I had a custom setting for this, expand, 1 pixel. So edit, paste special, paste into, Alt Shift Control V, paste into. What that's done is actually paste an entire copy of the layer but masked it out where our selection was. So what we're actually doing is duplicating that layer lots of times, but only showing the bits where the puzzles will be. So for example, I'm going to do this one again. So I go back to my template, select it, then modify it by 1 pixel, and then edit, paste special, paste into. Okay, so you got an overlay. Then I just keep on going. For example, if I turn these off now, we can see how the puzzle's starting to form. So again, we go template, shift control Q for me. Remember, you can set that in edit preferences. Okay, then shift control alt V for paste into, and then you just keep going and going and going for each one. So by 1 pixel, shift control alt V, and we just go again and again and again. So I'll speed this bit up again so we then get to the last bit. Okay, so each part of the image has been done. I'm going to turn the template off so you don't see it anymore. And I'm also going to turn the original background layer off. Now the reason why I've done that is you should notice these little dots have appeared. Now it will be on every single piece, there will be those little dots. Now this is where the circular edges are. These bits never fully marry up, or rather that's not correct. When you do the selection bit, they never fully select the entire thing. Well, unfortunately there's no quick way around this. So if you need to adjust those, remember you've got a mask. So we can just select our mask, make sure we're painting in white, get a brush, put it to our smallest setting, and we're going to zoom very, very close in. And with our brush, we can bring those back in to normal. Now you can go and do that for all of these dots, and just bring them back in. Just make sure you're on the correct layer for each one. If you're not too sure, just turn the layer on and off, make sure you're on that mask, and edit those back in. I'm not going to do it for all of this because the effect I'm going to produce is just for screen and you're not going to notice it, so I'm not going to bother going through that because it'll take too much time. But what I do want to do is actually add an effect to this. Now before we go any further, remember we made the canvas size extra big, or extra pixel big, shall we say. See, you got that transparent pixel on the edge. Now you want to get rid of that. So we're going to go to image, canvas size, and we're going to drop it back down. So 900, 701. Okay, it's telling us it's going to clip it, so we do proceed. There we go, we've lost that 1 pixel bit of transparency on the edge. Now, to get the effects of the being able to see the parts of the puzzle, I'm going to go to the FX, and it is a simple case of doing bevel, and emboss. Adjust as necessary. There's no absolutely correct way of doing this. So I'm just going to play with the settings until I get something that I like for this image. Now, this is going to be different for everyone. It all depends on what sort of effect you're after, and it does depend on the resolution of your image. So I've got quite a low resolution image here. So once I've done that, I'm okay. You can also do an inner shadow with this, but flip it around the other way. For example, but I find with a low res image, just the bevel and emboss is usually enough. Once you've got that, do consider playing around. Another one that someone likes to do, or people like to do, is strokes. And if you had a 1 point or 1 pixel stroke, drop its opacity quite low, it will give this sort of effect. So with stroke, sorry, without the stroke, with stroke, without the stroke, etc. Personally, in this example, I don't think the stroke works very well. High resolution, I think it does. What we need to do then is add this bevel and emboss to all of these layers. Easiest way, sorry, easiest way is right click the effect and do copy layer style. Select, so once you've done all of those, you just right click the effect, copy layer styles, select all the layers, right click again, and paste layer styles, and it'll add it to all of those layers. And there we go, that's it, virtually done. Then all we do is arrange it. So for example, I'm going to turn on auto select, hang on a minute, we got all those selected, didn't like that. Select the correct layer, and I'm going to move this around. Whoops. Now if this happens when you're moving it, the reason being is, and this is really important, let me just do Control Z to undo it if you did do that, is make sure you link these together. So you click here and it will link the image and the mask together, so when we do the move it stays together. Okay, really, really important. Otherwise you're going to get that nasty effect I just had. Now when you move it, and you can rotate it, so I'm just doing this with the move tool by the way, and I've also got transform controls turned on. So say I move it to, well, just there, press return to say yep, that's where I want it. You'll want to add a drop shadow to this, because it just needs the drop shadow to make it look like it's, you know, not part of the jigsaw. It'll just make it stand out a little bit more. Again, whoops, wrong menu, outside. Again, these settings are dependent on the resolution of your image, so I'm just going to leave it as these default settings for now and just do OK. So that gives us that sort of effect. Now if you find when you're moving it around it's disappearing behind the pieces, that's simply because the layer order is stacking. So just move it up in your layer order and it'll be again on top. And that's basically all there is to it. Now as the background you saw me in my original image, all I did was find a wooden background off of sxc.hu and use that as a tabletop and slap this on. So with a bit of effort you can produce that effect. So obviously this one was done a lot more dividers, and it was just slapped on at the end.